All right, thank you, Ed, and thank you, John. For more on all this, let's bring in Louisiana Senator John Kennedy. Senator, good morning and welcome. Thanks for being here this morning. Before we get started, I want to play a clip of an interview that happened on the Fox News channel last night with our own Martha McCallum. It was a leader of the Black Lives Matter movement making a very strong point about what will ultimately happen if that movement doesn't get what they're asking for. Listen.
If this country doesn't give us what we want, then we will burn down this system. What is this country rewarding? What behavior is it listening to? Obviously not marching, but when people get aggressive and they escalate their protests.
Martha pressed him to clarify what he meant by burn down the system. That could mean figuratively, that could be literally. He said it's a matter of interpretation. But that's getting a lot of attention this morning, Senator. How do you respond to it?
I listened, Sandra, to the interview last night. Decisions, let's take public art. Decisions about public art should be made by consensus, not the mob. Unfortunately, the statute police, we've all seen it on TV, are trying to turn our cities into scenes from Mad Max. The mayors, Speaker Pelosi, are allowing it. They think that all these folks need are hugs and hot cocoa. I think they need to go to jail and be made to clean up their mess or pay for it. Anarchy is not harmless fun.
Okay. I want to make sure that I say that he went further in that interview to say that the movement itself is about saving lives. And he does say that sometimes violence is necessary. He points back to moments in history where obviously violence was necessary. He makes the case at why the Black Lives Matter movement, at sometimes it is necessary to invoke violence. What do you say to that? Because he then went on to explain that in the wake of the George Floyd death and the protests that then followed, that this isn't about ambushing police. This is about saving lives. That was his point, saving Black lives.
Well, here's what I heard, not in his words, but in mine. I listened to the whole interview last night. Here's what I heard Mr. Newsom say. I heard him say, I hate America. America was evil in its origins. It was wicked. And it's more evil today. I heard him say that most Americans are racist, anti-Semitic, misogynistic, ignorant, and we need to burn the system down. Now, this is America. He's entitled to have that opinion, but he's not entitled to act on those convictions and be violent. And it has been tolerated by our mayors and by leaders on Capitol Hill. I mean, I heard Speaker Pelosi say yesterday that Tim Scott and his Justice Act and the rest of us are trying to get away with the murder of George Floyd. I mean, you can only be young once, but you can always be immature. That's about as sophomoric of a statement as you're going to find. And that's fan the flames.
Obviously, Senator, that is your interpretation of the interview. And to be clear, he's the leader of the Greater New York Black Lives Matter movement. Right. His name is Hawk Newsom. We have the full interview on foxnews.com. You can go watch it for yourself and see how you interpret those words in the entirety of the interview. You are seeing a similar movement calling for the pulling down and taking down of monuments and statues happening in your state, a place we both know very well, Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. There is a change.org petition that is circling there on campus, and I'll read you a portion of it, Senator. The LSU administration should first take action to replace the names of all 12 racists among them slavers, Confederates, mass murderers, segregationists, and a governor who disenfranchised 99% of Black voters in Louisiana. Respond to that, Senator, as you take this to a local level and what's happening right there in your state.
If you believe in federalism, Sandra, as I do, you believe that decisions about public art ought to be made by the communities, the cities, not by the mobs. But you have to have a full and fair discussion. People have to feel free to express their opinion. If you can't say what you really think, you're not free. It's not fair if somebody expresses an opinion to say, you're a racist, I win. But if those are the rules, I'm going to abide by and accept whatever the various communities decide. I will warn you about this, though. Self-righteousness, in retrospect, is easy and cheap. Arthur Schlesinger said that. If you remove every statute of every person who did not meet modern-day morals about race, about anti-Semitism, about misogyny, about gender equality, and you do it right, you're not going to have many statutes left. I mean, we've had two major television stations for a long period of time in the 20th century in America run the Amos and Andy show. And they didn't do it for one season or two. They ran it and sponsored it for 40 years. We just found out a late-night television host appeared in blackface. He was trying to be funny. Now, if we're going to have this discussion, we can't have double standards. We've got to be able to talk about the entire experience. And what we're going to find, Sandra, and this is a good thing, that Americans today view race and anti-Semitism and gender equality much differently in 2020 than we did in 1820 or 1920. That's called learning from history. And I think we need to be careful before we erase it.
And I think the word discussion, as you see there, that's the Middleton Library, or the name coming down there on the LSU campus. I hear you use the word discussion, and I think everyone's in agreement that a discussion, a debate is needed, and it's needed to continue, albeit in a lawful manner, is what so many of us wish for. Finally, on the debate on Capitol Hill, it is surely heating up on what can get done on police reform. I want to end with this sound from the Tampa police chief and what is happening there and why it's a tough time to be a cop right now.
It's very tough. These are trying times. I think after this case, morale had already been down. I'm doing my best to keep them up. I do think the pendulum is going to swing back to some semblance of normalcy. But morale is tough. These are tough times to be a police officer. And, good luck trying to find anybody who want to be a chief of police right now.
That's a tough thing to hear, Senator. As far as keeping the streets of America safe, we want to feel safe going out with our family. Bill McGurn in the Wall Street Journal yesterday writing about what's happening to police morale in this country, how difficult it is to recruit in this time, this difficult time for our country. Final thoughts.
We have people on Capitol Hill, I'm sad to say, that think cops are guilty until proven innocent. And I'm going to say what I said the other day. If you hate cops just because they're cops, next time you get in trouble, call a crackhead. I don't think, well, let me put it another way. I think we got more honest cops than we got honest politicians. And I think it's all just sad. When a Muslim or jihadist blows up a school of school children, we're told don't judge all Muslims by the acts of a few, and boy, do I agree with that. So how come the same rule doesn't apply to the 800,000 cops in this country? If it wasn't for double standards around here, we wouldn't have any standards.
Senator, I've got 5 seconds left. I mean, it's a big lift to talk about police reform in that amount of time. But is something going to get done? Can you come to some sort of bipartisan agreement?
I hope so. But my Democratic friends and Speaker Pelosi refused to even let us bring up the bill for debate and for their amendment. And then Chuck Schumer blamed us for not passing the bill. I mean, I'm sorry, that's like being called ugly by a frog. They won't even let us get on the bill, but yet Tim Scott and all the rest of us are responsible for not passing it. And by the way, Tim is trying to cover up George Floyd's death. You know, you can't make this stuff up. It's like a sequel to Pulp Fiction. And it's embarrassing. And you know what? This is why Congress polls right up there in the estimation of the American people with robocalls. It's these kind of political games. It's all about the next election, not the next generation.
Senator John Kennedy, always appreciate your time. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.